Hey, everybody. I want to start this episode by apologizing. In an earlier episode, the one where Calliope Draper was the guest, I talked about Slayer and said that it was some kind of miracle that it had taken so long for me to talk about Slayer because I have complete creative control over this podcast. And that's not entirely true. I don't have full creative control. Engineer Jesse is recording my voice, and if he wants to, he can make me sound like Will Ferrell in Old School when he gets hit in the neck with a dart. And producer Aaron can speed things up, cut out each little gap, and make me sound all stilted and inhuman. Mostly, though, the guests choose the guests. Outside of 3 guests so far, I haven't invited anybody to be on this podcast out of the blue. Out of the 14 episodes, 11 of the guests have been chosen by previous guests. So, if you're hearing this and you haven't been invited onto Branching Out yet, I don't know, talk to your mentees. So I have the majority of the creative control, but definitely not all of it. I'm Josh Lindley, and this is Branching Out. On this week's episode, my old pal James Grant is here. James was named by both Calliope and Jeff Savage to be part of this project. James is the master of puppets for all the bars at the Fairmont Royal York here in Toronto. And in this interview, he talks a lot about how he shares his creative control. And if this episode sounds a little different, it's because we did it live! That was dumb. I was going to make the whole episode about live music or sports or, as opposed to listening to or watching it on TV, but maybe I'll save that for a later episode. Anyway, here, live from Action Pact Studio in Toronto, Canada, is James Grant on Branching Out. This is the first ever live recording of Branching Out, the Bartender Atlas podcast. It took us, what time are we at now? Yeah, about 36 minutes to figure out how to make this go, but now we're here. I'm Josh Lindley. I'm the host of Branching Out, and sitting at a just awkward enough distance from me in the same room is James Grant.
Hello. Hello.
James.
Yes?
Thank you for being on Branching Out.
Thank you for having me.
Could you, for anyone listening, let me know who you are and what you do?
My name is James Grant. I am a bartender who spent most of his career in Edmonton, Alberta. And I now oversee 3 bars as the beverage director for the Fairmont Royal York here in Toronto.
Do you find that sometimes when you tell people what your job is, they sort of ignore you and then treat you as they were treating you anyway?
Yes. No, I mean, people are always very nice to me, and I try to downplay myself. I usually just describe myself as a middling bartender from the Midwest.
Sure, the Midwest. Like literally
Alberta's like the
middle.
Midwest.
Yeah, it's like, what is it?
It's
I don't know.
prairies. It's a flyover state.
I guess so. Yeah, sure. When did you start bartending?
I started bartending in 2012. I want to say it was the start of October 2012 in London, England.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What were you doing in London?
I was, in 2012, I left Edmonton to get a youth mobility visa. It was the last year that I was eligible to do that program and get a work visa for the UK. And I had recently just set fire to my whole life. And so I was like, let's get out of here. So,
do you want to talk about what that life was that you set fire to? Or do you want to just get past it?
Yeah. Prior to that, I worked in corporate communications and public relations. Before that, I was a funeral director. I was married at the time. And then I got divorced, quit that job, and just went and worked in the UK. A bunch of my friends who I'd gone to university with in Scotland, they all moved down to London too. And we all got a flat together in North London. And I sent out 100 resumes for a job in my field, and I got 0 callbacks. So then I Googled bartender resume, and I made a fake bartender resume, and I got 25 interviews the next week.
Excellent.
And I had a job shortly after that.
It sounds like the bridges that you burned lit your way.
Oh, that's such a poetic way of saying it, Josh. Thank you.
I know it as Dylan McKay from 90210, but I'm sure someone else wrote that.
Yes.
You were named to be on Branching Out by Calliope Draper and also Jeff Savage.
Oh, 2 of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, they're good. And they both had questions for you. One is much easier to answer than the other. Callie strictly wants to know,
when are y'all coming to Montreal?
I mean, I'll hang out with Callie anytime, anywhere. When am I going to Montreal next? Hopefully soon. I have a plan to do something at the newly opened Bar Numero. Mm-hmm. Alex, who runs it, and his partner, Olivia, are very, very good friends of mine. And I really want to get out there and see that bar. So hopefully in the next couple months, I'll be there.
Alex also Jess and I were recently in Montreal, went to Numero twice in 2 days, once as they were crushed towards the end of the night and once as they were opening. I feel like that's how you get the vibe of what a bar can do and who they are.
Yeah.
Talked to Alex very briefly. He wasn't working the second day we went there. He was taking off because he was going to see the Angel Dust show. And it was just like, oh, a hardcore kid opened an amazing cocktail bar. What do you know?
Love that. He's such a sweet pea. I really love Alex.
Yeah. And then Jeff Savage also mentions that you two have a very like symbiotic, quasi mentor relationship where both of you are just learning from each other constantly.
Yes, my brother's been.
Brother's bend.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that. And Jeff said,
how does authenticity fit into what you thought about when you came into the industry? And how does authenticity feel now that you're like deeply rooted in it?
I have been thinking about this question all morning because I did my homework. I went back and re-listened to Callie and Jeff's episodes of this podcast last night. And it's funny. I think authenticity is one of those things that it really runs through success in this industry, I think, because this industry is often very demanding emotionally, physically. You know, the job has a way of kind of like stripping you down to the like core of your being when things are really challenging, and that's kind of where you find yourself. So I think there's that element that comes through in every element of like difficulty in this industry. But I think what made me fall in love with bartending has to do with that idea of authenticity. I think a lot of people in this industry was like not a socially like comfortable kid growing up, and it's in finding these communities as you grow up. Like I think you and I have both bonded in the past over like, you know, like punk music and hardcore, and like you find yourself in these communities that are very like emotionally intense and you form these close bonds. But in general society, you kind of like build these masks or personalities to kind of pass in polite society. But with bartending, it really is like it's finding a way to express who you are and like lean into it. Whether it's like you might take certain elements of your authentic personality and like depending on the context, you show those. But one of the things I loved about bartending is all of a sudden it was this way that I could connect to other human beings, which I've always had a very difficult time doing. And so to me, like getting behind the bar is this ability to comfortably be my authentic self and have people respond positively to it, which is not something I had really had in my life up until that point. So I think that's what made me fall in love with it originally. And then leaning into that and learning how to celebrate that is what I think allowed me to achieve a modicum of success.
That's a great answer. Do you feel like part of that, being able to embrace that parts of yourself authentically while you're on bar, is that stuff you were missing in the previous life, the one that you lit on fire?
For
your
sure.
Communications job, ironically.
Well, I mean, I think when I look back at a lot of the jobs I've done, one of the things that I often think of is there's this moment in a story that, like, when I was growing up was very important to me, less so now due to certain elements. But there's a comic series called The Sandman. Sure. Which, like, I grew up absolutely loving. And there's, like, a moment later in the series where it talks about this metaphor of, like, Destiny's Garden, where it's, like, the idea that you walk through this garden that has all these forking paths and you're constantly traveling. And when you finally get to the end of it and you turn around, it's like one straight line. And I think that when I look back at my career of working as a funeral director or in retail or public relations or academia or any of those things, they're all trying to connect with other people. It's like trying to listen to what people need from you, what they want to feel seen and heard and taken care of, in some situations for profit and in some situations just to get through like the hardest day of their life. And those were the things about those jobs that I always really loved. And so finally landing in a job like hospitality, where the whole job is just making someone feel looked after and taken care of, I think made me realize like, yeah, like I can do this. I can like pour the things that I am passionate about into this job and find success doing that. Like what I do at the hotel now is so reflective of previous jobs I've had in my academic background. And that's sort of how I've been able to set myself apart from, I think, what other bars are doing. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So stepping back a little bit, a little less heady, a little more direct, you started working in bars in London.
Yep.
Did you immediately fall in love with working in bars, or did it take a minute for everything to click?
The first couple days, I was like really stressed out because I like did not know what I was doing. But I remember like, you want to talk about mentorship? I remember like trying to pour a pint of beer and it was like so foamy, and like one of the guests on the other side of the bar was like, "Hey, there's a little nozzle on the side of it. If you turn that down, it'll reduce how much foam is coming out." I was like, "Got it, thank you."
We love a regular.
And that like was so helpful. But immediately that idea of like just falling in love with like hosting people and making them happy and this immediate kind of camaraderie that happens behind the bar when you're like absolutely like crushed. Because London is not a super friendly city.
No.
People in London like do not want to be your friend ever, unless they're in a situation where they think they can be your friend, which is work. So I became really good friends with the other bartenders, and I loved that feeling of being really physically exhausted at the end of the day and feeling like I'd actually done like a full day's work, which you don't get in an office.
Yeah. So it clicked with you right away. How long were you in London for before coming back to Canada?
It took me exactly like 1 year to run out of money living in London. So then I moved.
I mean, 1 year in London is an expensive year anyway.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you came back, where did you start working? Who were you working with? We're gonna. This is my chill segue.
Yeah. No. Perfect. So when I moved back to Edmonton, and I took a part-time job as a barback at a cocktail bar there called Woodwork. It was actually filling a role on that bar team that Jeff had just vacated to go down to Calgary and open Proof. And everyone was like, oh, pretty big shoes to fill. So I think I did okay.
Was there something about coming from London to Edmonton? Were your eyes wide open as to the capabilities of what a bar could and couldn't be? Or were you just taking a job?
Not at all, because I worked at a beer bar. I didn't work at a cocktail bar. When I was making my applications in London, like I knew I could like fake pulling a pint. Like I'd been behind the bar at like a friend's bar in Vancouver a couple times, and I knew how to do that.
Except for that one time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the beer was going in the glass, so it just wasn't doing it super well. But I didn't know how to make cocktails.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fake that. And I didn't know where to start whatsoever. So I took this job as a barback, and the bar manager was a friend of his partner was best friends with like the girl I was dating, and she was like, I can get you a job at this bar. So I took that and immediately kind of fell in love with this idea that like all of these drinks have stories attached to them and histories, and you know, I could learn about a different spirit or a different cocktail every day for the rest of my life and never hit the bottom. And to me, that was really exciting. And you know, slowly but surely working at Woodwork, trying to develop my creativity and starting to make my own cocktails. And the first time I made like a dealer's choice for a guest, and they were like, oh, this is so good. Like, it's a really empowering moment. It was like really cool. And I've just been chasing that ever since.
Have you ever found it again?
I mean, yeah, all the time. Like when you make a drink that just kind of emerges from your head, like fully formed, and like you and the rest of the team taste it, and you're just like, holy shit, this is crazy.
We got a banger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stuff like that. Those moments are so fun.
So who were the people you were working with at Woodwork that were showing you these old books and teaching you all these stories about old drinks?
So I worked with the bartender that I think taught me the most was a bartender named Natasha Trousdale. She was so passionate about bartending. And at the time I was 31 and she was like 22, but she just like imparted so much like knowledge to me and kind of walked me through how to do these things. And she had managed other bars already. So I learned quite a lot from her, and she was really generous with her knowledge. And, you know, we had a couple of other bartenders working there as well. It was an odd bar to work at the time because there was no real mentorship. Like the bartenders who were like thought to be the kind of established mentor bartenders in the city had like sort of owned part of this bar, and then there'd been an ownership dispute, so none of them would come in. So we were all kind of like left to fend for ourselves as like children at this bar.
Right.
So we were all kind of teaching each other more than anything. But there was a moment that really sticks with me that's very important, which was not one of the bartenders, but the chef and I were talking, and I was still part-time, and I was trying to decide whether I was going to go back to doing corporate communications or something like that. And he's like, well, you know, you're good at this. Like, you have a talent for this. You could be great, but you need to decide whether you're like in or out. And it can't be about money, and it can't be about ego, and it can't be about like building up a social media following or anything. He's like, you have to do this because you genuinely like looking after people, because that's the only thing that's going to keep you in this business more than like a couple of years.
It's funny. Talked to Lynette Marrero a few weeks ago, and she had a similar thing. She had a serious musical theater background. And yeah, she, one day when she was, 26, 27, was just like, nope, I have to choose one of these things. And she runs Speed Rack. Yeah.
It's really hard to keep a foot in both worlds, which is something I realized really early in that year, where all of a sudden, like, I was never seeing my my daytime friends anymore because I was at the bar all night, every night. And you do have to kind of pick a lane.
It's a weird old saying about like if you chase 2 rabbits, you get no lunch.
Yep.
Yeah. So Natasha, do you know where she came from or who she was learning from?
She kind of learned from some of those bartenders that had opened this bar in the first place. And she learned a lot from Jeff.
Okay.
So Jeff was really one of her mentors.
Right.
And so it's like a weird thing that like she was learning from him and then I was learning from her and then I was competing against him and then he and I were learning from each other. So she learned a lot from him. She learned a lot from, bartenders like Jordan Clemens in Edmonton. And we had a kind of mutual bar manager that we both learned positive lessons from and passion from, but also like a lot of like worst practices from, who was our bar manager there for a little while. So we were like, really, it was just like, it was a bunch of children like learning from each other.
But sometimes that's nice though. There is a camaraderie that comes from that.
Yeah, I think about sort of the first menus that we put together as a team with like no real leadership, where we were just doing it for ourselves. And we were so proud of that menu. And looking back at it now, there were so many things that were like inefficient or like terribly costed and like wouldn't have worked. But it was like this first time that we had done it ourselves. Like it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was like such a nice moment.
Do we need 4 grapefruit components in one cocktail?
I think back, we had this delicious cocktail that we reworked once, actually at the hotel. And it was like a pretty classic daisy, like a strawberry daisy. But the garnish that we made was like all of these little fruits, like on a pick. It was like a blueberry and a raspberry and a strawberry slice. And like we rolled up a lemon peel with like a rosemary in it, so it looked like a little pineapple. And we were doing that for every drink. And it would crash the bar.
Yeah.
This stupid garnish would crash the bar.
But you made it.
But I made it.
It was,
Yeah, lesson learned.
Beyond Natasha, who else have you been learning from? Who else would you call a pillar or a mentor?
It's really funny. Like there are bartenders that I look up to that I've learned a lot from, but I think it's very rare that it's been like I've had people who now I look at as mentors in terms of leadership. Like I think about someone like Michael Armistead, who ran the World Class Canada program, who has been like an incredible mentor for me as a leader and in terms of like thinking about my career. Jeff is...
We love Michael.
I mean, I love him.
I'm going to ask you this question. Pretend Michael will never hear it. Can Michael make drinks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, because I'm like, he's always hanging out with you or Caitlin or Jeff, and so he would leave it to you guys to make the drinks. But Michael does know how to make drinks.
To hear him tell the tale, he makes drinks better than we do.
Oh, okay.
He actually can. He makes a mean espresso martini.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still look up to Jeff a lot, despite the fact that he's younger than I am. Like he is, I think, a much more steady individual. He's a lot more, I think, thoughtful in ways. I'm a bit more, I think, reactive at times, but I think that's just being deeply neurodivergent. So I still look up to him quite a lot. But when I was thinking about this morning, about who has really taught me the most in the last 5 years, it's the people that ostensibly I'm in charge of.
Okay.
Like I learned so much from my bartenders and the apprentices that I've taken on, and just I am like being at a luxury hotel is not an environment that I ever thought I would be at, or that I'm particularly well suited to at times. But my bartenders are like so good about giving me guidance and grace and patience and sort of coming to me with new ideas. Because like at this point, like I've been doing this for 13, 14 years. Like a lot of these kids have been bartending, maybe 4 or 5, and they're so excited about things that I've never even considered. They're coming with like techniques or flavor profiles and just more diverse stories. So I do think like I've learned a lot from the bartenders that I'm supposed to be in charge of. Like people like Chris Devay or Joe DeRio and Nick Incratoli, who is someone who I work really close with constantly at the hotel. As our head of production, I learned so much from him, just seeing how much patience he has to put up with me. So those are people that like really have taught me so much in the last few years. But I don't know, I never really had like a mentor,
right? In
the same way that Jeff didn't. So that's why he and I kind of glommed onto each other and formed this like really, really intense friendship/professional rivalry.
What did you say before?
Brothersband.
Yeah.
You know, I most of my, like, I don't know, I think a lot of mentorship also comes from like people outside the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I moved around a ton when I was like younger, and as I said, was not like a particularly like socially comfortable kid. So like a lot of the ways that I understand the world or come to understand like other people was through like stories, like books or through bands or so like what has shaped my idea of like other people and how to relate to them and how they should be respected and like what values are. I think like that comes out of like being in punk bands and like reading books that are really important to me. So like I also view that as like a really important form of like self-mentorship.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that like one of the menus that you're running right now was a collaborative effort between everyone on the bar reading a specific novel and then what's your take on it or what stuck out about that novel and create a drink around that. Where did that come from? What made you think to base not just on like a cocktail menu based on not just a writer or a time frame, but a specific novel? And also, who decided on the novel?
So the reason that we took that approach for that menu is I wanted to give the bar team an experience that I had when I was younger that was very, very formative to me, which was being in like first year English 101 in university and having a professor teach me that, you know, if you can read a story, whatever you take from it, whatever your interpretation is correct if you can articulate why. It's like an enormously empowering moment after 12 years of school where like a teacher is telling you like, no, wrong, it's like this. For a teacher to all of a sudden tell you like, no, actually, like, you're right, just tell me why. It's really special. It's really empowering. And I wanted to give that to the staff, some of whom who had like some of them told me they had not read a novel for fun in like 10 years. So that was why I wanted to take that approach. And I also think our guiding approach at Library Bar at the hotel is we base all the cocktails on stories. And it's because I think as long as people have been sharing hospitality with one another, the three things that they've shared with one another are food, drink, and stories. It's just a very natural kind of human impulse because stories are how we understand the world. And so in terms of this, of choosing one book and having us express it, it's we'd done menus of like tons of different stories, like every drink was a story, but I was like, can we do this all one book? And to me, that book, it's one of my favorite novels, but it's a novel that made me fall in love with Toronto. In the Skin of a Lion by Michael Ondaatje, it's about Toronto in the 1920s. And more importantly, it's about how the city was built by its immigrant communities and the idea that diverse voices and diverse stories are really necessary for a thriving city and a thriving community. And I wanted to give the bar team an opportunity to lean into their own stories and what resonated in that book for them. So, you know, I had some bartenders on the team who had spoken to me about wanting to find opportunities to express elements of their heritage or the food traditions of their family or their culture, or just express themselves a little more personally. And I said, okay, great. Like, whatever you take from this book, like, lean into that. Fold your own story into it. And so that's what we did. And we ended up with these 15 drinks. Well, we ended up with 50 drinks after everyone had submitted their proposals. But then as a team, we edited all of them. Yeah. And
there was no wound up lemon peels with rosemary on top to look like a tiny pineapple.
We literally went through, and as a team, we scored every single cocktail on like a full like judging sheet. And it was everything from flavor, presentation, relevancy to the story. And there was a big section that was on prep. Like, is this cocktail worth the amount of prep that you've put into it? Because we have one prep guy who has to do all the work. And we all worked on it together, and we nailed it down to 14 drinks.
I think it's a really cool menu. I think it's a really cool idea. If you were going to ask Natasha anything, or Michael anything, or pick a random bartender from Library or Clockwork or Rain, what would you want to ask them? And I'm happy to jump on that grenade for you.
What would I ask? I was like, I guess my question would be, when you step into your role every day, whether it's behind the bar or leading a cocktail competition or training a young bartender, what is the story that you're trying to tell them?
Yeah. I just want to know where Michael learned how to make drinks.
From us.
Yeah.
Yeah, from us, for sure.
That's great. James, if people are trying to find you, you aren't allowed to make drinks at work. Is that right?
Well, sometimes the bartenders are nice and they let me. No, so one of the things, I can get behind the bar. I don't take bar shifts right now at the hotel.
Yeah.
That's part of us being a unionized property, which quite frankly, I'm too old to make drinks anymore.
Okay.
And I love that my bar team
I'm going to pretend I'm not close to a decade older than you, but sure.
I love that my bar team is unionized, and I have to say that so loudly. It makes me so excited to see a team that's like taken care of and protected, and I love it so much. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. But you can find me every now and then at the Fairmont Royal York. You can ask the team in any of the bars if I'm around. I feel like their default answer is definitely not, but sometimes I'm there. You can find me on Instagram at Old Grey Rabbit. You can find me doing stuff with World Class Canada. You can find me doing stuff with Jeff, with the Dum Dum Boys.
I meant to ask. I asked Jeff, and he didn't give me a straight answer. Does Dum Dum Boys come from the Dum Dum Girls or from the Iggy Pop song?
The Iggy Pop song.
You're saying
and
straight.
Also, that's where I took it from originally. And also, Jeff is correct. It is because we were both just fucking stupid.
Okay. James, thank you so much for coming and hanging out at the action-packed studio to record an episode of Branching Out.
Thank you.
You're the first one, and you were so patient.
That's, one of my virtues.
Awesome. I hope that after hearing the way that James involves his staff in some very out-there ideas, you feel inspired, or at least you look like the mind-blown emoji. One of those two things. If you're listening and you like what you hear, you can let us know by sharing this and all of our episodes on whatever apps you use. If you're a bartender, sign up to be on bartenderatlas.com, or at least follow us on Instagram at bartenderatlas. This episode of Branching Out was recorded live in the Action Pact studio in Toronto. Written by me, engineered and produced by Aaron Verdonk and Jesse Colburn. Charlotte Cassinell makes sure that I ask our guests the questions that I'm supposed to be asking. Thanks, Charlotte. Talk soon.